Coach, I know that Kim Moore had a couple of scramble drills, but for the most part, I think you guys did a really good job keeping contained, keeping him in the pocket. Just how did you evaluate the defensive ends, kind of setting a hard edge on him?
You know, a little bit mixed bag, like you said. I mean, you know, there were some plays that he obviously had the ability to extend and create some plays down the field. You know, both in completing passes, but also creating a holding penalty there late in the game. It's just a long time to cover. So, in some regards, I think you know the pressure helped us as a team because it forced the ball out of his hand quick. And then you know there were times in some of the four-man rush stuff where he just had too much time. But we kind of knew going into the game that you know when there was going to be opportunities to pressure, we had to take advantage of that, get the ball out of his hands pretty quick. And then there could be some extended plays because of the nature of how he plays. And you know, he's a good player and did a good job, but you know, it's just we can't put our defensive backs in those situations where he can just run around for that long. But you know, I thought the guys you know did the best that they could in terms of trying to limit those situations.
Sometimes you know defensive ends can be judged by their sack totals and stuff like that, because obviously sometimes they can. How did you feel like your guys played? It wasn't a game where they obviously had a lot of production, but how did you feel like they played in that game?
No, you know, it wasn't a you know a high level of production in terms of the stat line. I did think in terms of how they played the run and what their role and responsibility in the run game was, that we did a pretty solid job as a group there. You know, but you know we got to get the production. You know, that's part of you know what needs to happen for us to be successful defensively, and you know we'll continue to do everything in our power to be as productive as we possibly can, because we need that pressure in the throw game for sure.
Aslan?
I asked Coach Fuller about this too, but with so much expectations on the team going into the season, like that front four on defense seemed to kind of carry a lot of it just because of the NFL scouts being all over them, their measurables. I know they're all different in their own way, but are you having to find yourself, it's less about X's and O's right now with guys like Pat and Marvin, it's just kind of about connecting emotionally and mentally, getting the best out of them of these next 4 games?
Well, I mean, I think you know everybody's in a little bit different place in terms of where they are, but you know, regardless of the circumstance that we're in, you know, those guys have goals and dreams that they aspire to go chase, and my biggest message is you need to put the best things on tape that you can possibly put on tape. Number one, it's going to help this football team. Number two, though, it will help you, you know, in pursuit of what those goals and dreams are. So, you know, we can't control all the circumstances that we're in now, but you do have the opportunity to control how you play, the effort, the emotion, the toughness of how you approach it. And, you know, right now you got to control the things that you can control.
Ira?
Sam, you know, he broke off the long term last week. What goes into the decision making about when to return and not? It seemed like a few of those were, you know, they weren't deep in the end zone, but with the offense kind of struggling, is that something you guys talk about and trying to create more sparks in the return game?
We give him a hot box, which is kind of like the parameters, you know, going into a game of when we do and when we don't. And, you know, obviously there's in-game adjustments that are decided there, you know, whether we want to or not. You know, I thought he made good decisions in the game, and when he did and didn't. You know, there are some weeks that knowing our opponent or knowing some things that we think we can take advantage of, we're a little bit more aggressive. Other times, if we don't get the kick, you know, that we want to get, we're going to take the ball to 25 and keep moving. But I thought his decisions were good, and you know, I just see a confidence in him, and you know, I think with every week and every opportunity, he's going to get better.
This is kind of in the weeds a little bit, but on Mastromanno's kick, it was down at the 4 or the 5. Did you like the coverage on the kick? Because it was a great kick. It just kind of died there. But it didn't seem like your players were right there around it, but I could have seen it wrong. I was watching from TV. Did you like the coverage of the punt necessarily, or is that just a great punter doing what great punters do?
First, it was a great punt doing what great punters do, and to answer your question, I think it's a great one, because I didn't really like the coverage. You know, when we're in those sky kick situations, we are very landmark on the field, landmarks for the ends and adjuster, who is the third guy who's down, and we didn't quite get to those landmarks, and obviously, we were a little bit fortunate that the ball checked up when it did, but that is a great player doing a great job in that situation in terms of Alex, and it's actually something that was a point of emphasis in when we practiced yesterday.
Jordan?
Coach Norvell mentioned earlier that special teams didn't really make any impactful plays. Was that kind of just the way that the game played out, or did you wish you guys kind of did more? Do you think you left some stuff on the board type of thing?
I mean, you got to maximize every opportunity you get. There was limited opportunities. I mean, I think there was one punt return. There was 2 returnable kickoffs. So from where we feel like we can create opportunity, especially in the return game, there just wasn't a whole lot of opportunity there. You know, we hit a bunch of our objectives that we have every week in terms of what we did on special teams, but that's not always reflective of, you know, how a game flow is. Just wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for our return units anyway.
What have you seen from North Carolina? It seems like their offense has kind of started to develop a little bit. I know they got their multiple quarterbacks, but now they've started to put up some points. What challenges do they present in terms of you know, the mobility of their quarterback and kind of?
I mean, I think the number one thing, and usually this is the case, but especially this week, is got to go in there and be able to stop the run. I do think that they do a really good job, both schematically and with their personnel in terms of running the football. So we got to be able to establish, you know, our run defense early, force them into some drop back throw situations, and then I think that creates opportunities for us. But if we're constantly playing in second and medium and third and short, that's not going to be the way that we want to play this game. So we're going to have to stop the run, be physical at the point of attack, win up front, and I think that's going to go a long way in terms of us putting ourselves in the best positions to be successful.
Go to Aslan for the last one.
Don't want you to give away any kind of strategy, Coach, but I know for the offense to have the ball 4th and 3 on the plus side of the field is probably a pretty good analytic point for them to kind of go for it. But with the way Alex plays, do you guys sketch things out in the week just talking about, listen, if we can get Alex to pin a team back, the way our defense can possibly play, you know, they can muff the punt, they can have a bad snap if they're backed up on their own end zone. How much sort of leverage game situation do you guys talk about with what you have with Alex and trying to get some sort of spark for this team?
Yeah, you know, in terms of those decisions, both in the punt scenarios and also at times in the field goal scenarios, it's a combination of they're talked about going into, and then a lot of it is game situation, just in terms of how much time, how many possessions, how we're playing defensively. I think there's a lot of different factors that can play into it, and I'll give you a good example. There was a couple times in Duke where we punted the ball because I thought we were really effective defensively, and obviously that's coach's decision, but he saw that we were playing pretty effective defensively, and we were a little bit more patient in terms of how everything was going to play. And in this past game, you know, they controlled the time of possession, so possessions were limited for us offensively, and you know, you got to take advantage and make the most of those opportunities when you have them. So ultimately that's coach's call, but you know, when asked for any thoughts on that, you know, my thought is always kind of based on how the game flow is going and how we're playing on defense, and you know, how we're playing, you know, really on both sides.